Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're heading to Paris to talk about a structure you've probably seen in postcards, movies, and maybe even TikToks, the Eiffel Tower. You know it as a symbol of love, proposals, and picture-perfect sunsets. But do you actually know how this giant iron landmark was built in just a little over 2 years? And did you know that most Parisians absolutely hated it at first? Stick around, because we're diving into the real story. The engineering madness, the drama, the myths, and the surprising facts that turned a temporary tower into a global icon. Let's get into it. Imagine Paris in 1886. France is gearing up for the 1889 World's Fair, officially called the Exposition Universelle. It marks 100 years since the French Revolution, and the government wants to prove one thing: France is leading the future of engineering. So they throw down a challenge: give us a 300-meter iron tower, built on a base 125 meters wide. Simple enough to say, almost ridiculous to actually build. Over 100 designs come in, some practical, some bizarre, including one that looked like a giant guillotine. Not exactly romantic. The winning proposal comes from Gustave Eiffel's engineering company. But here's a twist most people don't know. The first sketches weren't Eiffel's. They were drawn by two of his top engineers, Maurice Koechlin and Émile Nouguier. Eiffel initially shrugged it off as too plain. So architect Stephen Sylvestre stepped in, added graceful curves and arches, and suddenly Eiffel saw the potential. Another truth that often gets lost: Eiffel didn't just lend his name. He risks his wallet. The government covered only a fraction of the cost, so Eiffel personally financed the rest. If it failed, he went broke. Construction begins January 28, 1887. It finishes March 31, 1889. Just 2 years, 2 months, and 5 days. For a structure taller than anything ever built at the time, that was unheard of. Here's where the engineering magic comes in. Every single part of the tower, 18,038 separate iron pieces, was prefabricated off-site in Eiffel's factory in Levallois-Perret. Each part was cut, drilled, and shaped with an accuracy down to 1/10 of a millimeter, then assembled into larger pieces and hauled to the Champ de Mars by horses. On site, workers didn't hammer things together freestyle. If a piece didn't fit perfectly, it didn't get modified. It went straight back to the factory. Speaking of assembly, the tower used 2.5 million hand-driven rivets. Teams of 4 worked the process. One heated the rivet to red hot, one grabbed it with tongs, another held it in place, and the last one hammered it home, sometimes balancing hundreds of feet in the air on a tiny beam. And yes, this is the part where you expect me to say dozens of workers died. Except, they didn't. There were a few injuries, but not a single fatal accident during construction. For the 1880s, that's almost miraculous. The structure rose as 4 separate legs leaning inward, like giant freestanding arms. Halfway up, builders worried the legs might drift off alignment, so huge wooden scaffolding towers were built to guide them. The public freaked out. Newspapers joked that Eiffel was committing architectural suicide. Despite the chaos, the shape wasn't random. It was mathematics and wind science. Air passes through the lattice instead of pushing against it, which is why the tower stands strong even in storms. Fun physical truth: the tower sways about 6 to 7 centimeters in heavy wind, and it literally changes height, up to about 15 centimeters, because iron expands when it heats up in summer. Today, people line up to take selfies with the Eiffel Tower, but back in the 1880s, Parisians were furious. Around 300 famous artists and writers signed a public letter calling the tower a disgrace. They described it as a black factory chimney, a metal skeleton, and an assault on Parisian beauty. Legendary novelist Guy de Maupassant despised it so much that he famously ate lunch every day at the tower's restaurant, not because he liked the food, but because it was the one place in Paris where he didn't have to look at it. Myth number 1. The tower was built for a girl whose name started with A. Nope. Total internet fantasy. Its shape is pure engineering logic. Wide base, slimming upwards, maximum stability. Myth number 2. It was always meant to stay forever. Actually, it was designed to stand for just 20 years. It was supposed to be dismantled in 1909. Eiffel saved it by turning it into science. First experiments with radio signals started in 1898. By 1903, it was relaying military messages. Later, it carried long-range communications and eventually television broadcasts. Technology, not romance, kept the Iron Lady alive. A few rapid-fire facts before we wrap up. The Eiffel Tower isn't made of steel. It's puddle iron. Almost pure iron refined by a special process. It gets a makeover every 7 years. 19 full repaints so far, using around 60 tons of paint each time. The color isn't random either. 3 shades of brown, darkest at the bottom and lightest near the top. Gustave Eiffel installed a private apartment at the summit, with sofas, wallpaper, instruments, and priceless views. He hosted scientists and celebrities there while everyone else stared from below. And during World War II, resistance fighters cut the elevator cables before the Germans entered Paris. If Nazis wanted the view, they had to climb 1,665 stairs. And when they finally raised their flag, the wind ripped it apart. Paris sent a message without saying a word. So there you have it. The story of how a temporary iron monster became the universal symbol of Paris and one of the most recognized structures in the world. Be honest, if you lived in Paris back in 1887, would you have protested it too? Let me know in the comments below. If you learned something new today, tap that like button, subscribe for more history stories that don't feel like homework, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.